Hello, and welcome to the Con Argument of Debate 3, brought to you by Derek Sear, Marshall, Anish, and Amit. In this presentation, we'll present the con argument that, in fact, widespread data collection combined with the internet does not compromise an individual's personal privacy to a degree unparalleled in human history. Let us first consider, what is privacy? Privacy is considered the right to be let alone, to be inaccessible to others, and to be able to restrict areas of knowledge about oneself from others. It's also the ability to control dissemination of information about oneself. To illustrate this, let's consider the history of privacy. Let's consider the small town prior to booms in communication. In this type of environment, you had to interact with a small set of people to secure basic needs like food, water, shelter. As a result, everyone in your community knew if you were sick, where you lived, who you were dating, your reputation, and if you did something bad that could jeopardize your reputation. Note that this was regardless of whether or not you wanted them to know this information or not. Now let us contrast this with what privacy looks like in an urbanized large city. Here, despite being surrounded by millions of people, you can actually achieve a greater level of anonymity than you would in a small town, since you don't have to interact with the same people all the time. As a result, no one may know if you were sick, where you live, your name, who you're dating, your reputation, or if you did something bad, unless, of course, you chose to allow them to. This may seem counterintuitive, since in fact you are around millions of people, so you would think you would have less privacy. But in fact, your level of anonymity ensures an actually greater level of privacy. As we evaluate privacy, it's important to understand the impact of communications regarding privacy. Communications, or increases in communication, present unique challenges to ensuring one's privacy. In fact, with every communication advancement comes privacy concerns. In response to these concerns, there are innovative and unique legislation as well as more responsive advancements to address these privacy concerns. Let us take, for example, the Postal Service. Mail used to be opened routinely in the 1700s. It wasn't until the 1850s when the sealed envelope actually came to be. During this time, Congress legally enforced the confidentiality of mail, however. This is obviously very analogous to packet sniffing, the unwarranted review of emails, cookies, and spyware that we experience today. Next, let's consider the telegraph. Messages were kept under surveillance, and this ultimately led to facts being shared inappropriately in the tabloids. Ultimately, this type of behavior was deemed protected under the Third and Fourth Amendments, guaranteeing rights to our privacy. This pattern of technological advancement in communication, followed by application of legislation and more responsive advancements in technology to address privacy concerns, continues on today. In fact, the telephone, moving pictures, the snapshot camera, and the counting machines were all considered to have implications to the prevalence of our privacy. In response to this, applications of the Third and Fourth Amendments, as well as new acts like the Electronic Communications Privacy Act and the Children's Online Privacy Act, were enacted. Now that we have a firm understanding of what exactly privacy is, as well as the history of privacy and how interconnectedness and communication impact privacy, let's delve deeper into what makes our con argument.
Let's now see the state of privacy in today's world. Today, within a direct circle, we have more privacy than any time in history. For instance, in early history, a single general store supplied goods to a whole community, and the information about a customer buying unacceptable goods could be easily leaked by the owner, leading to embarrassing consequences for the buyer. In contrast, today with internet, online shopping gives complete anonymity over the customer's buying habits, protecting the privacy of the customer. The customer also has ultimate control over the data he shares. For instance, if a user does not like the way a company uses his information, he can simply opt out of the service without any constraints from the service provider. Today, we also enjoy a privacy like never before. With internet and emergence of online dating services, online gambling, and other likes, an individual can enjoy new forms of privacy and can compartmentalize their personal life away from work or community. Let's now have a look at the state of privacy in early times. Prior to the Act of Fourth Amendment, the king had the ultimate authority to search the property and homes of colonists anytime they felt the need without any justification. Basically, the king had the authority to invade the privacy of any individual whenever he wants against their concerns. In addition, under the Third Amendment, Americans were forced to provide British soldiers food and shelter whenever they demanded it. In contrast, now, the Fourth Amendment protects any individual against unwarranted searches and seizures, making massive strides of improvement in the privacy of people. Invasion of privacy, even in rare cases, are far less intense compared to the breaches in era before the Fourth Amendment. In other words, we live in an era with unprecedented improvement in privacy that can only be viewed as a luxury in the times before the Fourth Amendment. In order to get a global perspective on the privacy issues around the world, let us now take a look back at the state of privacy concerns in the Soviet Union. In this time, communism was intense and spying was widespread across the different countries of the Soviet Union. Invasion of privacy became the status quo. Around 14 million people were sent to labor camps and 1 million died as a direct consequence of invaded privacy. In the past 100 years, the fall of the Soviet Union and Eastern Bloc is regarded as the greatest advancement in increased privacy. This, in turn, serves as a scale to gauge the gravity of our privacy concerns and help us put our privacy worries into perspective.
Hello, this is Amit. From our previous con argument, you came to know how today our privacy is more protected by the options to remain anonymous and several amendments in the law. In the next few slides, we will see 4 examples to contrast the impact of privacy violations in old time to that of privacy violations in today's age. Until the American Revolution happened in 1780s, America was a British colony. Before the freedom, agents of the king had authorization to search the property and homes of the colonists anytime without any justification. They also had the authorization to seize any papers or property they had deemed necessary without any probable cause. You cannot imagine such breaches happening to you in today's times because we are protected by the Fourth Amendment. The impacts before the Third Amendment were even more serious. The series of acts called Cartering Acts, which the British Parliament passed, forced the Americans to provide British soldiers with food and lodging whenever they demanded it. The Third Amendment protected us from this problem. In the next examples from 1990, the breaches in privacy and its impact are life-threatening. About 400 million people living under communism in Soviet Union and Eastern Europe have experienced the most serious invasions of their privacy. Behind the Iron Curtain, that is Soviet Union, spies were everywhere. Friends spied on friends, co-workers spied on each other, and even children spied on their parents. The Soviet even made a hero of Pavlik Morozov, a 13-year-old boy who turned in his father to the authorities for anti-communist activities. His father was later sentenced to 10 years in a labor camp and then later executed. In another incident in East Prussia during 1945, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, an author, was criticizing Stalin in a private letter sent to a childhood friend. That letter was intercepted by the authorities. It is unclear whether his friend turned him in or whether the Soviets read the letter before it reached his friend. But as a result, Solzhenitsyn was sentenced to 8 years in Soviet labor camp for writing the letter. All these incidents took place before the advent of internet. The impacts of invasion of privacy in these cases range from seizure of property to a soldier living in your house. Only if these were not extreme, you could end up in labor camp for 8 years for writing a critical letter, or losing your life because your 13-year-old son spied on you. Now, contrast this with the impacts of privacy invasion in today's time. The worst case consequences of your invasion are something like embarrassing emails being made public, which all of us know cannot get us killed. Thank you.
Privacy is a right to be let alone, an ability to restrict areas of knowledge about oneself to others. Theft is often confused with invasion of privacy. For example, if someone hacks into my account and steals my money, that is theft. Whereas when I have an account with a bank and I go bankrupt, if the bank publishes this information to everyone, this is called invasion of privacy. Which exactly what happened in the olden days, when there were just one general ledger who would be in charge for the entire neighborhood. Therefore, when one member of the community goes bankrupt, the ledger could easily leak the information to the entire community. On the contrary now, online banking is more secure and provide absolute privacy. Online shopping is just one of the many cases which we discussed from before that has ensured more privacy when compared to the past. Also, it cannot be denied that individuals now can be more anonymous. Also, number of people leading a private life is more now than ever before. One such stats on physical privacy shows that number of people living alone has grown from 8% to 26% over the past 60 years. Strict laws and amendments, unique and innovative ways have been introduced to combat the privacy issues of now. This has enabled us to experience unprecedented privacy, which was once considered a luxury. So it's an obvious conclusion that the vast history of privacy violation makes today's privacy concern seems pale in comparison. To conclude, we would like to emphasize that although widespread data collection combined with the internet have complicated and compromised an individual's personal privacy to some extent, it is nothing like the atrocities that occurred in human history, especially in the era before the Fourth Amendment and during the Soviet Union. Thank you.